I never thought I'd be in this position, questioning my wife's loyalty after 5 years of marriage. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always believed we were solid. My daughter from my previous marriage, Emma, has always been wary of Lisa. Emma's 17 now, and she's fiercely protective of me. Maybe she saw something I missed. Lisa and I met through mutual friends. She was everything I thought I needed: smart, funny, and beautiful. We clicked instantly, and within a year, we were married. Life seemed perfect, but looking back, maybe I was too blinded by love to see the cracks forming. It started subtly. Lisa's late nights at work, unexplained absences, and a sudden interest in her appearance. She'd spend hours getting ready, even for a simple trip to the grocery store. When I asked, she'd laugh it off, saying she just wanted to look good for me. I wanted to believe her, but Emma wasn't convinced. She'd catch glimpses of Lisa texting someone, her face lighting up in a way that was too familiar. One day, Emma came to me, her face serious. "Dad, I think you need to see something," she said, handing me her phone. There was a picture of Lisa getting into an expensive car with a man I didn't recognize. Emma had followed them to a fancy hotel and snapped a photo of them entering together. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. I had to know for sure. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed spyware on Lisa's phone, a move I never imagined it'd make. It felt wrong, but I needed to know the truth. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and dread. Every time Lisa picked up her phone, my stomach twisted. I tried to act normal, but inside, I was a mess. I started getting notifications about her messages and calls. Most of it was harmless, but then I saw his name. Mark. The messages were intimate, far beyond what friends would share. "Had a great time last night. Can't wait to see you again," one read. Another, more explicit, made my blood boil. There it was, plain as day. She was cheating on me. The realization hit me like a freight train. This was my wife, the woman I promised to love and cherish, betraying me with another man. I didn't confront her right away. I needed more proof, a plan. I started tracking her every move, noting when she left, where she went, and who she met. It was a painful process, but it was necessary. I had to be sure before I acted. One night, while she was out, I found her diary tucked away in the back of her closet. It confirmed everything. She wrote about her feelings for Mark, how he made her feel alive in a way I apparently never did. Each word was a knife to my heart. Now I had my proof, but what was I going to do with it? How do you confront the person you love with evidence of their betrayal? I knew I couldn't keep it bottled up. I needed to confront her, to hear her side of the story, even if it tore me apart. The moment of confrontation was approaching, and I dreaded it. But I knew it was the only way to move forward. For my sake, and for Emma's, I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it would be. The day I decided to confront Lisa started like any other. She left for work, kissing me on the cheek with that same fake smile she had been wearing for weeks. I could hardly stand to look at her, knowing what I knew, but I forced myself to act normal. Emma, always perceptive, gave me a knowing look before she headed off to school. She knew something was coming. I spent the day reviewing the evidence I'd gathered: the text messages, the diary entries, the photos Emma had taken. It was all there, a damning collection of proof. I felt sick to my stomach, but knew it had to be done. I had to confront Lisa and get to the bottom of this mess. The waiting was the worst part, the hours dragging by until she came home. Finally, the front door opened, and Lisa walked in. She looked tired, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice warm, but to me, it was tainted with betrayal. "Hi, Lisa. We need to talk," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked puzzled, but didn't protest. "Sure, what about?" "About us. About what's been going on," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone, showing her the photos Emma had taken. "I know about Mark. I know you've been seeing him." Her face went pale. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, but then she sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for what to happen, Lisa? An affair? You wrote about it in your diary, about how he makes you feel," I said, my voice rising with anger. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I was lonely, Jason. You've been so distant, so focused on work and Emma. I felt like you didn't care about me anymore. So you decided to cheat on me? To destroy our marriage? That was your solution? I spat, unable to contain my rage. I know it was wrong, she sobbed. I never wanted to hurt you. Well, you did, I said, my voice cold. You betrayed me, Lisa. You betrayed our family. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air. I wanted to scream, to rage, but I knew it wouldn't solve anything. I needed to understand why she did it, even if it broke me. How long has this been going on? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. About 6 months, she admitted. It started out as just a friendship, but then it became more. And Emma knew before I did, I said, shaking my head. My own daughter had to be the one to find out and tell me. Do you know how humiliating that is? I'm so sorry, she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Sorry doesn't cut it, Lisa. What are we supposed to do now? How do we move forward from this? I demanded. I don't know, she said, tears still streaming down her face. I don't know if we can. I stood up, unable to be near her any longer. I need some time to think, I said, walking towards the door. I don't know what our future looks like right now, but I need to figure it out. As I left the house, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and relief. The confrontation was over, but the hardest part was yet to come. I needed to decide what to do with my marriage, my family, and my life. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least I knew the truth. And with that truth, I could start to rebuild, whatever that might look like. Over the next few days, I wrestled with my emotions. I couldn't look at Lisa without feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. Emma tried to be supportive, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She was watching her father fall apart, and it broke my heart. I decided to take a few days off work and spend some time alone, away from the house and the constant reminders of Lisa's betrayal. I booked a cabin a few hours away, hoping the solitude would help me clear my head. The first night at the cabin was rough, the silence was deafening, and my thoughts kept drifting back to Lisa and Mark. I replayed our confrontation over and over in my mind, wondering if I could have handled it differently. But no matter how many times I thought it through, I knew the outcome would have been the same. Lisa had cheated, and there was no undoing that. On the second day, I decided to call a close friend, Tom. He had been through a rough divorce a few years back, and I hoped he could offer some advice. We talked for hours, and he listened patiently as I poured out my heart. Jason, you need to think about what you want, Tom said. Do you want to try and save your marriage, or is this a deal breaker for you? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to try and fix things, but another part of me is so angry and hurt. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Trust is hard to rebuild, Tom agreed, but it's not impossible. The question is, do you think Lisa is willing to put in the work to fix this? And are you? I don't know, I repeated. I need to talk to her, to see if she's truly remorseful and willing to make changes. Then that's your next step, Tom said. Have that conversation and see where it leads. But remember, it's okay to put yourself first in this. You deserve to be happy too. When I returned home, I felt a little more prepared to face Lisa. We sat down together and I laid out my thoughts and feelings. She listened, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't interrupt. I need to know if you're willing to put in the effort to fix this, I said. I need to know that you understand the gravity of what you've done. I do, she said, her voice shaking. I know I messed up, Jason. I know I hurt you and Emma, and I'm so sorry. I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Then we need to go to counseling, I said firmly. We need to work through this with a professional, someone who can help us navigate these feelings and rebuild trust. You'll go, she agreed. You'll do anything to make this right. The road to recovery was long and fraught with challenges. Our first counseling sessions were awkward and painful, but slowly we began to make progress. We talked about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to trying. Emma was a constant source of support, even though I knew she was struggling with her own feelings about Lisa. She had always been wary of her stepmother, and now her suspicions had been confirmed. I tried to be there for her as much as I could, but I knew she needed time to process everything in her own way. As the weeks went by, I started to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. Lisa was trying, really trying to make amends and rebuild our marriage. but the scars were deep, and I didn't know if they would ever fully heal. Despite the progress in counseling, I couldn't shake the anger and betrayal I felt. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her with Mark. It consumed me, eating away at any goodwill that our therapy sessions might have fostered. I needed an outlet, something to make me feel like I had regained control of my life. I began to think about Mark, the man who had inserted himself into my marriage and turned my life upside down. I wanted him to feel the pain I felt, to understand the consequences of his actions. That's when the idea of revenge took root in my mind. I started by digging into his life, learning everything I could about him. I found out where he lived, where he worked, and who his friends were. The more I learned, the angrier I became. He was just some guy, a nobody who had no right to interfere in my life. One night, fueled by anger and a few too many drinks, I decided to confront Mark directly. I gathered a few friends who were willing to back me up and drove to his house. The plan was simple: scare him, make him understand that there were consequences for his actions. We arrived at his place late at night. I pounded on the door until he answered, his face pale with shock when he saw me and my friends standing there. "What the hell do you want?" he demanded. "I want you to know what it feels like to have your life destroyed," I said, my voice cold and steady. "You messed with my marriage, and now you're going to pay for it." Before he could react, my friends and I pushed our way inside. We trashed his place, smashing anything we could find. Mark tried to fight back, but we easily overpowered him. I made sure to leave him with a few bruises and a clear message: stay away from my family. The adrenaline rush was intoxicating, but as I drove away, the reality of what I'd done started to sink in. I had crossed a line, one that I could never uncross. I knew it wouldn't fix anything, wouldn't erase Lisa's betrayal, but in that moment, it felt like a small victory. When I got home, Lisa was waiting for me. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "Jason, what did you do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I took care of it," I said, not meeting her eyes. "I made sure he won't come near us again." "That's not going to help," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It's not going to fix what happened." "I know," I admitted, feeling a hollow sense of defeat, but it made me feel better, even if just for a moment. Our relationship was already on shaky ground, and my actions that night only made things worse. We continued with counseling, but the trust was gone. Lisa tried to be supportive, but I could see the fear and disappointment in her eyes. Emma was distant, her own pain and confusion making it hard for her to connect with either of us. The revenge, while momentarily satisfying, didn't bring the closure I had hoped for. Instead, it left me feeling more lost and alone than ever. I realized that if I wanted to move forward, I needed to find a way to let go of the anger and focus on healing. As the months went by, it became clear that our marriage was hanging by a thread. The counseling sessions were no longer making a difference, and the trust between us was irreparably damaged. Emma's presence was a constant reminder of the person I needed to be, the father who needed to make the right decisions for his daughter. One evening, after yet another tense counseling session, Lisa and I sat down to talk. It was a conversation that had been a long time coming, one that we both knew we needed to have. "I don't think we can keep doing this," I said, my voice heavy with sadness. "I don't think our marriage can be saved." Lisa nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know. I've been trying, Jason, but I can see that it's not enough. We've hurt each other too much." "I don't want to live in a house filled with resentment and anger," I continued. "I want us to find some peace, for Emma's sake if nothing else." "Maybe it's time we let go," Lisa agreed. "Maybe it's time we both find a way to move on." We decided to separate amicably, agreeing to co-parent Emma and support her through the transition. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. The following weeks were filled with difficult conversations and logistical arrangements, but we managed to keep things civil for Emma's sake. Moving into my own place was bittersweet. It marked the end of a chapter, but it also offered a fresh start. Emma stayed with me most of the time, and we slowly began to rebuild our lives. We leaned on each other for support, finding strength in our bond. Lisa and I remained cordial, working together to make sure Emma was taken care of. We weren't friends, but we were committed to being good parents. As time passed, the anger and hurt began to fade, replaced by a sense of acceptance. The divorce was finalized quietly, without the drama that had plagued our marriage's end. It was a relief to have the legalities behind us, to finally close that chapter of our lives. Reflecting on the journey from suspicion to discovery, confrontation to revenge, and finally, to resolution, I realized how much I had changed. The betrayal had shattered me, but it had also forced me to confront my own flaws and strengths. It had pushed me to the brink and then pulled me back, showing me that I was capable of rebuilding my life. Emma and I grew closer through the ordeal. She saw me at my weakest and stood by me, offering a wisdom and strength beyond her years. I was proud of the young woman she was becoming, and I knew that together, we could face any challenge. Lisa and I found a new normal, one that was built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to our daughter. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined us. We had both moved on, carving out new paths for ourselves. In the end, I learned that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define your life. It's possible to find strength in the ruins, to rebuild and move forward. It requires time, patience, and a willingness to confront your darkest fears, but it's possible. The journey wasn't easy, and there were moments when I thought I wouldn't make it through. But looking back, I see that each step, no matter how painful, was necessary. It shaped me into the person I am today, stronger and more resilient than ever. As I looked toward the future, I felt a sense of hope and excitement. There were new opportunities, new relationships to build, and new adventures to embark on. The past was a part of me, but it didn't define me. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, confident that I could face it with the strength and wisdom I had gained.